All right. Hey there. Welcome to Beauty in the Pond podcast. I'm Kiani Mills.
And I'm Andy Reid.
Two friends who have a very similar set of values, but who have taken very different life paths to end up in similar situations.
We are also business owners, parents, property enthusiasts, and bloody short on time. So we bring you this podcast to shine a light on humanising business.
Because look, let's face it, business is life, and life is business.
Beauty in the Pond podcast. It's an absolute pleasure to have you back, Kiani. As always, pleasure to see you. How are things?
Yeah, pretty good. Great to be here. As always, I love having a chat with you.
I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into this next one. It should be an absolute ripper.
Look, aren't they all? But yes, it comes with a personal little premise from the two of us. We quite enjoyed this one, didn't we?
Oh, look, it wasn't too bad. But it started off as a very random conversation. And then we just happened to have pressed record. So, gang, if it starts off a little bit meandery, I don't know if that's a word, but it is now, then yeah, just see where that meander takes you and see if it helps.
Good luck and welcome to the conversation. I'm really, really interested in your revelation this week, Andy, and I'm very excited to delve into it and hope that our listeners get a little bit of know-how. And I'm sure
Revelation it's more of a fucking talk about axe wound. It's having a peek under a band-aid that's been festooning for a while.
Gross, really gross.
Yeah, it's getting manky.
But if you were to give it a topic, what do you think you'd give it? What would you call it?
What?
The revelation.
I'd be something like I'd be taking myself seriously. I forget more shit that I help people with than whatever, right? I don't pay attention. I was saying this to someone else yesterday. I don't pay attention. I help people and they do really, really well and it's great. And they tell me, I'm like, awesome. I'm really happy for them, but it's their win. So I'm like, okay, cool. Right, on to the next one. And it'll be gone. And so when I have Chiquita asking me shit and I'm getting really wound up with myself because I'm like, fuck, I can't remember anything. And then she'll make it plainly obvious. I'm like, well, I did this, and this, and this. And she'll go, fucking hell, that's quite good. And I'm like,
yeah.
Oops.
So I guess there's an element in there of, and I know that I do it too sometimes. I know that I'm a really good conveyancer and I know conveyancing inside and out, but I also know that I know a little bit about a million other topics or enough to make a comment or an assumption or give feedback or give advice or, hey, this is what I did, didn't work. But it's almost like, you know, that, what's that saying? Jack of all trades, master of none. But you forget how much you actually know about everything and then bring it on back to what you do know about what is your mastery trade. You've been doing it forever, so it becomes second nature. So you almost forget all of the fundamental parts and pieces that for someone else obviously is life-changing.
Yeah, you are spot on. And then it's going to sound so wanky. For example, whenever I talk to people about listing presentations, right, all of them, they all start winning afterwards.
Yeah.
Like I'll be getting 21-year-olds beating market leaders. Or I'll be getting little independents, you know, the little Davids beating the Goliaths. And the real, yeah, when you talk about that mastery thing, everyone seems to think, for me, that my mastery is auctioneering, right? That's what everyone seems to think. And
if I was to describe you to someone, I would probably lead with, he's an independent auctioneer.
Yeah, 100%. And that's understandable because shouting at people until they give us money, that tends to draw a bit of attention, right? And I'm not bad at it. That for me is my fun. That's like my dessert, right?
On a Saturday and a Sunday, you choose an odd time to have dessert.
Yeah, that's like, if we were to call it a degustation of some description, the auctioneering bit for me is probably courses 6 and 7. You know, the reason why I'm good at that, I think, is because I can pay attention to people
and read the crowd.
That's the benefit of being the son of coppers, right? You have to read people. That's the thing that I really, really struggle with beating my chest about. There's got to be a certain amount of chest beatery, right, when it comes to owning a business. Because if you don't tell people what you're good at, then how's anyone going to know? And therefore, why the hell should they buy off you? or engage with you, you know, or buy your product, right? If you don't go out there and say, right, my product's dead good, you need to come and buy it, then people are just going to look at your product and go, oh, yeah, it's the product, and then move on to the next one. And then as soon as a product comes along that says, I'm dead good, buy me, you'll go, all right, yeah, cool, I'll do that.
So if I was to ask you the same question, how would you answer?
Without sounding like a wanker?
You can definitely sound like a wanker.
The intangible thing that I'm good at is the ability to engage on the level of whoever it is that I'm engaging.
You're a chameleon.
I can have a conversation with you, and I personally regard you as a real high performing, you know, mind in a really cool way.
Oh God, you poor thing.
A little bit. At the same time, it's just odd. And it is that intangible thing. You know, if I'm talking to a crowd of people, right, I know I can feel an energy and act accordingly.
Yeah,
and
that's a skill. That's a really big skill. And
it will work. There'll be a level of engagement there. You know, sometimes I take a punt. And for example, I had one team where I was warned, you know, these guys have all been in the industry for a while. They're all a bit older. They've all reckon they've heard it before. They're a very, very dubious bunch, blah, 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 blah. I was like, okay. So I took a punt and altered my language and approach so that I went rope-a-dope and got them to swing first. And then use the language of, if it's okay with you, can I challenge one or two things? And no judgment, no pressure, no nothing. Just want to see if I can challenge one or two things that might get you thinking slightly differently, if possible, if that's okay. By being a lot more courteous. And that's the thing, right? You got to, you know, it's one of those ones, you've got to respect your elders a little bit, blah, blah. Yeah. But at the same time, I think because I got them to exert some of their dubious energy first, it was quite easy to knock them out afterwards. It's that sort of shit that I know. That's why I win in auctions.
Yeah.
That's why I win. It's not because I can shout really loud. It's not because I've got a massive pair of lungs on me and I have the ability to count. Right? That's not what makes me the auctioneer that I am. What makes me the auctioneer I am is the fact that I analyze the energy, the aura of all buyers individually en masse, and then calculate it into a call that makes the most out of it all. That's what I do. I'm not, it's weird, right? I'd go as far as to say I'm not an auctioneer, because in fact, this is an interesting one. I'm not an auctioneer in the traditional sense. I'm not. I am so different. And the reason why I'm different is because I've not been classically trained.
Yeah.
And I have some classically trained auctioneers. They criticize me, the way that I carry on, because I'm not sticking to a process and I'm not formal and blah, 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 blah. I mean, having said that, you put me into a rich kids auction, like you put me into a, blue chip, like a Brighton or a South Yarra or Point Parker, if you're New South Wales or something like that, right? And I'll adjust.
Yeah. The chameleon comes out.
I can go James Bond and speak the Queens quite happily. Shaken, not stirred. You can then throw me into blue collar, whatever, and you have to, and that's where I know I am all right at what I do. But
that sounds to me like you've just highlighted your superpower.
But this is the reason why I want to have this as a conversation, Kiani. So and by the way, everybody, we started this podcast accidentally. And we're just rolling with this now, right? So our format is gone out
the window.
Like so far out the fucking window. Anyway, the reason why I wanted to bring this up, Kiani, and FYI, PS, I'm really glad that we both picked up on the fact that we're already recording. The reason why I wanted to bring this up in a conversation for everybody is you mentioned something in one of the first episodes. I can't remember which episode it was now, but you talked about CEO mindset, right? And that pushed me over an edge of a cliff that I was sticking my nose over. When you edge to somewhere and you go, oh, how deep is it? I was doing that. I was peering over.
Dipping the toes in the water.
You just sort of gave us a little nudge. It was a very slight, deft touch that made me go, oh, fuck, I'm going to have to go down this. I'm going to have to jump, because something that's been bugging the shit out of me, right? So my role from a training coaching point of view, right, take the auctioneering out of it, is to help guide the skill sets and mindsets of people in the industry so that they can create better connections and make more money. And I've been seeing in this Century 21 role that I've got, right, which is this national training role. It's my first real foray seriously into the training side. and I'm dealing with some external trainers, and I've connected with a whole bunch of them, right? And their marketing is off the charts with respect to how they are perceived, how I perceive them. I buy into it, right? I'm looking at their shit and going, fucking hell, they're good.
Yeah, right. Okay.
They must be really good. Or I'll look at the way that they are promoting themselves and going, fucking hell, I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. Like, how on earth can I do that with this apparent superpower, whatever the fuck you want to call it, right? And when you are now, but then I've been getting under the hood of it and going, what you see is not what you get.
Yes.
There is very little substance to this style.
Yeah. Perception.
Which on one hand makes me feel encouraged. And I'm like, fuck, I can mix it with these guys quite comfortably without really stretching my legs too far or too hard. But then on the other hand, it infuriates the shit out of me because I'm like, oh my life, oh my days. Like, these guys are charging people obscene amounts of money for a 6-week program or whatever the bullshit is. I could spend 2 or 3 hours with these people and get them to a better place than 6 weeks and 5 figures of money per person, right? Yeah. And I know I don't do anything for money, right? Mm-hmm. And we had a bit of a text exchange the other day, right, where you were saying that you'd had a significant win from a business point of view, and you're relating it to dollar figures and productivity, which is what businesses should be doing. But I don't give a
doesn't make the heart sing though, does it?
Nah, and I don't give a shit about money. I've never been motivated by money.
No.
But at the same time, it'd be nice to have a bit more.
Yeah, it always would.
So the way that you've got yourself in a mind, and look, I'm not saying that you're Teflon, right? I'm sure you have your moments as well.
Holy shit, yes.
But you seem to have your shit together, in my opinion, better than me.
Yeah, well, opinions are perceptions. And as we've seen with those fantastic marketing gurus, it's not always true. Sometimes what we feel on the inside, and you're right, it's fleeting. Like, life is not linear. There is no way that we wake up every single morning feeling fucking amazing and incredible and we're going to take over the world. Some days it's just not like that. But I guess from a business perspective, and we have spoken about this before, how I guess business has always been a bit of a sanctuary for me. So I've created a muscle when it comes to business. And I was very lucky to have an amazing performance coach who, while business was the key focus, performance is just about as much about our mentality than it is about what we deliver in our businesses. So the comment that we were talking about was when the extended version of that was pretty much him saying, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And how do you want to think? Because if you want to be a sole business owner forever, think like a sole business owner. But if you want to be a CEO, then start thinking like a CEO, start acting like a CEO, and it will happen in time. And through that, there was a lot of shut the fuck up, Kiani. A CEO wouldn't think that. A CEO wouldn't say that. And a lot of it. But it was over time going, hold on a second. I'd think something and go, oh, victim, that's a sole trader right there. That's not what I want to be. And no offense to sole traders at all. It was just what I needed to get my mind over the hurdle, because I always felt inferior. I always felt like I didn't belong or I didn't fit in, or I felt like a fraud in this world of extremely successful business owners. And it's not a nice place to live. And one of the things I've learned is that our brains don't know the difference between truth and a lie. So if we tell our brain something, or if we think something, it's all fact. And I say this to my daughter all the time when she jokes and she goes, I don't love you. I'm like, oh, my brain hurts. And she's like, why? I said, well, because my brain doesn't know if it's true or not. She's like, but you can see that I'm laughing. I said, yeah, my eyes can, but my brain still thinks that you just told me that you don't love me. And that hurts me. It hurts my brain. Same thing. If we wake up in the morning and we go, oh, fuck, it's time, I'm tired. Oh, I've got to look at these cash flow projections, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be hard and it's going to be mundane. But it is just like everything. Mental health is what we've been speaking about a lot. It is a muscle that you've got to flex, and putting yourself into that mindset sometimes does feel uncomfortable because you're not there yet. But the more you allow yourself to believe that it's going to happen, the more comfortable you become. And then soon enough, you sit back and you look and you go, actually, that's exactly what I am. That's exactly what I'm doing. And holy shit, I just made all of this real. But you've got to be able to see it to believe it. You've got to want it.
Right. No, you're spot on. You're spot on. Couple of things from that. So when you said, when you were going, you were in a sole trader mentality, but you want to think like a CEO, and there's going to be a lot of sole traders that will be listening to this, all being well. There's something that when I was working with a local soccer club, and I was saying, why don't we create Friday night football, right? Just because you're a local soccer club doesn't mean you can't think like a big club in terms of how you deliver to your people, right? To your players, to your customers, to your fans, whatever. And when it comes to the sole trader side of things, and this is where, right, I think a lot of sole traders sell themselves very, very short. I damn well did and do. When you're a sole trader, there's almost that sense of not needing to take yourself seriously, right? Because you're a sole trader, it's just you. But I think when my perception of this CEO, thinking CEO mindset that you've got me bloody thinking about is, why the hell shouldn't sole traders be thinking of themselves as the CEOs of that organization, right?
Do you want to know the hack in this?
Yeah.
They already are.
Right, yeah, but let's face it, if they're going to be putting that on their LinkedIn, then that is a wanker play, in my opinion. Right?
It's not an external thing, but it's an internal thing. If you are, like Andy, you are your CEO.
Why aren't we, though, Why aren't we, though, taking this CEO mindset and applying it to everything? Right? When you're having fun, have serious fun.
Yeah.
When you're having work, have serious work. For me, it kind of drills down to how much do you value your time.
Yeah.
And I think where a lot of sole traders tend to fail is the fact that because they're sole traders, they end up becoming slaves to their game, whatever their game is, instead of being a servant of the game.
And that's exactly what it is. And I don't know why or what it was. And it definitely got passed on to me when I first started running business, because I started my first business as a sole trader. And my mentor at the time, who was a good friend of mine, and even my family, and I watched my uncle run his business, it was always exactly that. You were a slave to the business. You work for the business doesn't work for you. And every other mouth gets fed first. You're the last one. If something has to be done, you've got to do it. It doesn't matter whether you're missing out on time with family or friends or whatever it might be. This is your livelihood. You have a responsibility. You're a sole trader, meaning you are on your own. And it's very hard to sometimes ask for help from that place too, especially where we see, sole traders who are tradies that may be carrying on family generational businesses that have been run a certain way for a certain period in time. But there's no reason why a sole trader cannot think like a CEO, behave like a CEO, and run their business like a CEO, because effectively they are. It's just that they don't have to worry about managing anybody else or anything else. And it actually sounds quite fantastic at the moment, but there's nothing to say that they can't. Absolutely. I honestly think what we're really facing here is a generational shift on what business looks like, because the mentality that I've been grown up around, and challenge me if you disagree, has always been that running a business is hard. It is hard to be a solopreneur. It is hard to do this. It is hard to do that. You won't succeed. It's hard work when you get staff on. Like, it all really does come around to the negative connotations around running a business. But I mean, our economy is kept alive by small businesses. But to me, I'm going to put it out there and say it's the generational shift coming from our fathers and grandfathers before us. However, we can make a shift to change it.
I don't know about that, because I think when you talk about language, right, I think calling ourselves or labeling those businesses as sole trader businesses is inherently an issue, right? From exactly what you just said. Sole meaning you're on your own. It's all on you sort of thing. You could argue quite easily that it's actually more necessary for a sole trader to act like a CEO than it is for a CEO to act like a CEO.
100%. I totally agree. CEOs have protection. Sole traders don't.
Exactly.
They're raw. They're naked.
Worst comes to worst, CEO can always just go, it's his fault, it's her fault.
His fault. Yeah. Pass it down the line. Someone else's fault. Joe in accounts, it's your fault.
With the whole generational thing, though, you could argue that the industrious nature of generations past make this whole running of a business thing actually relatively straightforward for people of our sort of age, because we saw our parents bust their ass, right? And we've got a work ethic there. I actually think the challenges are coming up, because right now, because of this phone thing, you can become a business owner like dead easy. You can start a business and crack on within a matter of, how long does it take to register an ABN? Like an hour?
Not long.
Takes not long at all.
Our digital and social world has definitely shifted to what a traditional business did look like.
Yeah. But at the same time, there's certain inherent parts of a successful business that are forever, like work ethic, like focus, and having that ability to just, get your hands dirty and crack on. And I actually feel that this is where we could be heading for a lot of trouble, because there's a generation that are coming through here that perhaps don't take running a business seriously enough.
Yeah, I agree. I really agree. It scares the shit out of me.
And that's a problem, right? Because you're right. The Australian economy is built off the back of small business, right? My own personal problem is brought from back in the day, being in the UK, where it's very conformist, very uniform. It's not a communist country, but shit, the way that the education system is set up over there, for me, or back in, the way that I went, it very much was, right, this is you, this is your ticket, this is what you're going to go into. That's your piece. You are that piece of the jigsaw puzzle within this economy and all that sort of jazz, right? So it wasn't communist, but fuck, if you look back, there was some uncanny resemblances.
Yeah, absolutely. Even down to on birth certificates, it used to say what the parents did for jobs.
Yeah.
Why does that matter?
Yeah, 100%.
Why does it matter?
But how do we crack it? How do we, as small businesses, solopreneurs, sole traders, whatever tagline you want to put onto it, how do we earn the right? It's not even external, because ultimately you earn the right by saying, right, ABN, externally, I've got a business, right? Done. I've earned that right because I've done it, right? How the fuck do we fix it internally, though? Because that's my problem. So I'm no harm, opening myself up to the listeners today and saying, like, this cliff that I've been peering over, it's been making me fucking nervous, right? It's been making me really nervous because, yes, that whole external, that fear of judgment and whatnot, for me, it's not even an external fear of judgment. It's an internal fear of judgment where I'll put myself up in this pantheon of trainers and coaches and whatnot, of which there seems to be like a billion of them at the minute, all coming out of woodwork.
And half of them are 21 years old.
Oh, fuck. And do the whole fancy dance sort of marketing and all that. And then I'll look at it and go, fucking hell, you look like a wanker, Reed. Like, really, Andy?
Maybe that's genuinely not what your core is, because you've got to be passionate about your purpose. I know that you're passionate about it, but you don't have to go down the douchey marketing spree if you don't want to. Stay true to you, and that's what you do anyway.
But that's the thing, though, Kiani, is that for a lot of businesses, for a lot of organisations, they want to stay true to themselves. But unfortunately, like I said earlier on, and this is where we can't just wave the flag of just stay the course, be true to you, because you'll get there eventually, and all that sort of bollocks, right? Two things. One, cost of living and everything says that, yes, if you stay true to yourself, you can be true to yourself. You can also be broke. Right?
And homeless.
Thankfully, touch wood, not that we're broke just yet, thankfully. But, and I know that patience is a virtue when it comes to running a business, but there has to be a balance.
Yeah, there's also a hell of a lot of work, time and effort that goes into it as well.
Yeah, there's got to be a balance here, right? There's got to be some way where you can flirt with that line of, self-promotion and so on and so forth without crossing that line and looking like a knobhead. There's got to be. But what is it?
Have you looked at, do you do goal setting?
Open up that can of worms.
Okay. Is that a topic for another day?
Oh, fuck. I used to be mad on goals, right? I actually have found a much greater freedom in my own mind by focusing on just getting a little bit better every day.
Yeah.
And having a macro vision and then just focusing on getting 1% better each day. I used to be mad on SMART goals.
Yeah.
And I do recommend them, right? Whenever I'm training and coaching and so on, from a business point of view, I do very much recommend them.
Yeah. You've got a vision. You know where you're going. You know what the end goal looks like.
Yeah.
Well, that's okay.
But goals can also be a tremendous way of bringing in a lot of toxicity into your life, because you start judging yourself against those goals.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck me, I did, right? So I'd have my own goals in like I've written down, I'm in me, and I'm, they're my goals. And I'll achieve 6 out of 8 or 6 out of 9, right? Or 4 out of 7 or however many I've got at that time. And this is based on some very, very bad old rusty wiring from back in the day when I was a kid. But I'd be focused on the 3 that I didn't get.
Yeah, right. Okay. So that's a mindset shift.
Oh, fuck yeah. Yeah. But when you're looking at it as a small business or a sole trader or whatever, sometimes it's really, really hard to smell the roses.
It can be, especially if you're alone in it. It really is. There are some great businesses and professionals out there. And honestly, other business owners, I feel like too much of the time we don't leverage our network enough. Like the conversations that you and I have had together have been honest and open. And even just that, sometimes being able to share is enough to trigger your brain to be like, oh, now that one's gone, let's move on to the next. Having those people in your life are invaluable.
I agree.
There's definitely more to it, shall we say?
But I reckon we might have stumbled across the first baby step towards, people that are feeling like this. I think that first little baby step towards getting better at this is really having a look at what you need within your own personal sphere, your own personal network, who you need in that own personal sphere, personal network.
The people in your pond are so important, and they are not your family and they are not your friends.
100%.
No
I
way.
mean, I'll be honest, gang, if it wasn't for our business, I really wouldn't treat Kiani as a friend because some shit that she does, I'm like, that's just weird.
Like wills and
odd stuff. I'm joking, gang. A little bit. But this is it, right? Because when we talked about tall poppy syndrome around being a business owner and whatnot, and the humanization of business and what have you. But again, you could argue that for a sole trader and for a small business, the business is the human.
It is. Yeah.
Unless you're inventing something brand new, there's going to be a whole bunch of other people that are doing the same shit. So you're going to be doing your thing, but it's how you do it that creates the USP, the unique selling point around whatever it is that you do. We've got to take care of that human. We've got to have that ability to be able to let that human speak unreservedly so that, like you said, you can create clarity in your thinking and whatnot. Because unless you get some of this shit out, my God.
And it consumes you.
Doesn't it just? I think consuming is the right word for it as well, yeah? And it's shit. And it sort of makes you go, fuck, I've just quit a 9 to 5 for complete control over my life. And now I'm working 24/7.
Yeah. You're like, no one tells you about that stuff on the other side.
No, they don't. It's kind of like the Matrix, right? You take the red pill, you go down the rabbit hole. You take the blue pill and live in ignorant bliss. But
I think what needs to happen, and what I'm hoping to partly achieve through this podcast as well, is there's actually a purple pill, and that's what we're going to get to the bottom of.
There is an ability to have it. I believe so.
Power of positive thinking, Andy. We'll get you there.
It's not even... See, this is why she looks at moons, gang. This is why she looks at moons and stuff. See, power of positive thinking makes me want to vom.
You're just not doing it right.
Just not doing it right, please. Right? I bet a load of people listening would have heard that and gone, because for me, there's too much bullshit positivity. It's got to be a practicality towards this. It was exactly my point.
You are right.
We need to find a line between self-promotion in an authentic, in a real, in a USP kind of way that is true to you, in a way that allows you to sell the best of you and the best of your business without crossing that line into power of positive thinking bullshit. Yeah.
It's the purple pill. It's the bit in the middle.
It is the purple pill. I saw a trainer, right? I won't name names. I saw a trainer that thought it was important to have branded cushions. She's a fucking real estate coach.
Yeah. See, my business performance consultants would say that money could be used elsewhere.
You're telling me. But this is the thing. When it comes to the coaching side, so there might be some people that are in this that are coaches in some way, shape, or form, that are listening to this. I'd have thought that our job as business leaders is to service our customers to a point that we are no longer required. That for me would be doing your job.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
However, there's way too much of this bullshit kicking around that unfortunately makes a lot of these small business owners and sole traders and solopreneurs and whatnot, it makes them addicted to these things, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't feel adequate within themselves to be able to rock and roll to the best of their abilities, you know, of their own volition. So last thing I want to ask you, Kiani, we're very much positioning this podcast as if, you know, and that's purely based on the fact that this is how I see you.
A crazy lady that looks at the moon.
Yes. Well, fuck, you got your shit together. So maybe I need to start looking at the moon.
There's a full moon on Thursday night. I'll walk you through it.
You know what, though? In real estate land, that presents danger, right? Because that's when.
Do you remember Hospitality Land?
Oh, big time.
Hospitality Land, you're like, I'm not working on the full moon. It brings out all the crazies.
I was the opposite. I'll be like, fuck yeah, full moon.
You're one of the crazies.
Woo-hoo-hoo. Here we go. But how can we help people find this purple pill, which is the pill that allows you to be the CEO of your own life, but then to also to be able to portray that in a way that still makes you feel that you're running your game?
Yeah.
How do you do it? Because you do. I think you do it quite well.
In all honesty, it took a very long time of realizing who I didn't want to be and then not apologizing for who I was. And in the industry that I work in, you know, as you were saying before, that you're not an auctioneer. I'm not a conveyancer. I don't consider myself a conveyancer, but that just happens to be the industry that I specialize in. But in all honesty, it came down to a point of, it almost was backwards. So it was setting my non-negotiables first, not only about what I would accept or wouldn't accept, about how I was going to behave and wouldn't behave. Then I also looked at the expectations I set on myself and the expectations I set on others, which was a really, really interesting task. And then I looked at, well, how do I want to be portrayed? Because I was told once, and it broke my heart, but it broke me open. I met a buyer's advocate at a B&I meeting, and we had a coffee catch up the week later, and he was very honest with me. And I thank him, absolutely thank him, because he said to me, he goes, God, I must tell you something. And I was like, yeah, tell me anything. He's like, I honestly thought that you were the biggest stuck-up bitch I've ever met in my life. I'm like, what? He goes, you'd walk into this room every week. You wouldn't make eye contact with anybody. You'd talk to the people that you were comfortable with, then you'd stand up, give out the awards, and you'd be out straight away. And I just sat there shell-shocked. And I was like, oh, wow, I can't believe that that's what he thought when he saw me. I said, that's not what I want to be portraying from myself. And he looked at me, he's like, did I offend you? I'm like, absolutely not. I said, you just given me an insight that I had never, ever thought possible. I said, do you mind if I tell you how I was feeling at that time? He's like, yeah, absolutely. I said, I was shitting myself. I was nervous. I was suffering from the worst form of social anxiety in the world. I was fucking petrified of public speaking. And here I was standing in front of a group of 40 business owners who were 100% been in business longer than me, probably knew more about me, standing up as this B&I professional trying to sell them on the fact that I knew what I was doing and I had my shit together. So for me, that was the most terrifying experience standing in that room. So to breathe, I had to get out. And in all honesty, I didn't actually think that anybody actually saw me in the room. And he's like, holy crap, I never would have expected that. I never would have thought that you were nervous or uncomfortable. You just came across like you didn't want to talk to anyone and that you're a bitch. I was like, whoa, holy fuck. So that was the day that I made a conscious effort to change the way that I put my energy out and how I contained without making others feel uncomfortable.
Fascinating stuff, that. And it's interesting, you know, because we make up stories in our head, right? Like what the buyer advocate did. We make up stories in our head as to what's going on, because that's all the information we have to go on, right? We make our judgments and we put our energies, evaluations of things based on the information that we retain at that time, right? And that, I reckon that's part of that purple pill.
Yep.
Is that I think if we spent less time worrying about the narrative that's going on in our own heads and actually asked those questions to the people around us, that network that we're saying is really, really important, if we actually ask the questions of other people, asking how they are receiving said information or said knowledge or said awareness or said self, then maybe we might actually learn some stuff. And it doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah. Even a little tiny little nugget, 1% change over time, man, you're a totally different person.
And it could go the other way, right? You might be thinking, fuck, this is shit. What I'm putting out's rubbish. This ain't working. I'm not getting the vanity metrics that I was hoping for, all that sort of crap. And then you speak to someone, they go, I love your content. I love your stuff. I think what you're doing is brilliant. And gang, we look for constructive criticism. We look for things that we can get better at. But there's no harm in getting a little bit of, that positive reinforcement, but in a way where you're not hunting for it as such. You're actually assuming that it's shit, and then someone else turns around and go, nah, actually really good.
Yeah, they're the beautiful, genuine, I call them sliding doors moments.
Yeah, for sure. That
make you go, oh, I am on the right path. I'm doing the right thing.
100%. I mean, how often do you reach that point where you're like, do I really want to keep doing this? And then it's always the world in some way, shape or form always finds a way of just reminding you, saying, just stick the course for a little bit longer.
Can I say that's the universe's way of letting you know that you are on track without taking it down the woo-woo path?
Yeah, no. There's a certain bit of it that is, there's a certain part of all of this that is not logical.
There really is no explanation to some of it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I must say too, I think a lot of, from that conversation, a lot of my growth came from letting go of control, letting go of expectations, letting go of the way that I thought I was perceived, and trying not to figure out what everyone else was worried about and just come back to me. So that would be, as you said, how do you have your shit together? Not all the time. But when it's important to me, I treat it as if it's the only thing in the world. I
reckon that's a super, super core ingredient. Do you reckon, because you've had some shit going on, outside of business, you've had lots and lots of challenges, which I just find some of them crazy, incredible challenges that you've managed to overcome. And do you feel that at one point business was your escape?
100%. I made it my escape. Yep, definitely. Because I refused to identify with the person that I had to be at home. So I created my safety net at work.
Interesting. Yeah. I reckon we're going to have to unwrap that in another episode. But gang, hopefully you've had a bit of value out of this, because like I said, this conversation was, we had it all set up to be like, hey, welcome to the podcast. And
we were organized.
But this is the whole point of this podcast, is to have proper conversations about the humans that are playing this business game. The whole point of this episode was around the whole CEO mindset. And I think if you were to take anything from this, it's understand that everybody's in a game of evolution around this. Everybody is looking to go that little bit better, that little bit further, that little bit more refined, right? It's not a case of trying to be perfect, because that's not achievable. Because as soon as you reach perfect, you go, well, shit, this doesn't feel so perfect. Where is perfect? And you end up driving yourself fucking nuts. But hopefully we can open people's eyes to, I love that analogy, the purple pill. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It can be both.
Yeah, it really can.
I like that.
It takes a bit of hard work. A lot of it really has to do with you, no one else. It's about looking at yourself, warts and all, accepting the good and the bad, and figuring out the version of you that you want to portray and you want to play that role, and being okay with it.
I like it. Gang, thank you so much for tuning in. Enjoy whatever it is that you're about to go and do with your day, your night. If you're about to go to bed, all the very best, sweet dreams. And thank you so much for allowing Kiani and myself to spend a little bit of time with you on this episode of Beauty and the Palm. We will speak to you again real soon.
Thanks, team. Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us. We are very grateful for your time, and we really hope that we've provided some value.
Follow us on Instagram if you've liked what you've heard, and if you have anything that you want us to talk about, things that might have been bugging you but you've not quite had the bottle to really bring it out into the open, send us a DM and we'll happily bring it to the table.